Hello and welcome. I'm Constellation Gaming, and this is Decklist December, where I'll be going through every single day inside of December and providing a deck list. Whether it's something fun or more competitive, I'll be providing a deck list. Today, I've got something that's more towards the fun end. As you can tell, there's not a bunch of like high attackers, and that tends to be right now what dictates what can be meta and what cannot be is just stat line. Sometimes abilities just can't beat out stat lines in this game right now. But yeah, this is a really fun list to play. I enjoy it. It's honestly one of my more fun archetypes to play. It's Burn, but we're playing Earthburn instead of like the previous package that with like Full Tempest and all the other Elestrals that every time you play an Celestial you burn. Uh, so we'll start off 3 Astrabbit like always. Astrabbit looking at the top three, picking whichever one, then shuffling your deck. Whenever you enchant it with Thunder, really good, especially in this deck, because we're trying to find our end game pieces and we're trying to stall out mainly until the end game so we can burn them in one big swoop towards the end. And the way we'll accomplish this is through Boltuga. Uh, Boltuga is a 3/4. When you normal cast Boltuga, you can expend an Earth in order to search your deck or Underworld for an Eruption and add it to your hand. So you can see where we're going with it. If you don't know what Eruption does, Eruption is a 2 cost that says they have to expend 3 or burn them for 3 unless they're Fire Enchanted. Unless they have a Fire Enchanted Celestial specifically, and then they do 1 instead. But obviously, if they have 1, we're not really going to be, or if they have a Fire Enchanted Celestial, we're going to try to not play Eruption. If we're noticing they're on fire game 1, we'll try to kill something and then possibly burn them for a decent amount. Even though it's not optimal, we want to wait till the end game, obviously. That is a strategy that can be done. It's just like a mid game chunk of damage that they really can't come back from. It can kind of put them on the back foot really heavily and then not allow them to come back also. So don't think of Eruption as just a full end game. You have to end with it because burning for 6 in the middle of the game can be pretty impactful, especially if they're at like 11 or something. That puts them down to 5, and their options are a lot less of what they can do throughout the remainder of the game without healing. Next, Mudlet 3/3 that whenever it receives an Earth, change the position of an Celestial. The main reason it's here is just to be able to have a little bit of a beater. He's obviously not that big stat wise, so gonna have to protect him. Uh, got 2 Eddie here over here, as you can see. We would be running the third instead of Mudlet here, or the third Mudlet, but our Ascension here requires Earth. So that's why we're on 3 Mudlet. We've got 1 Pandison. This is honestly one of my favorite cards in the deck and kind of in the entire game. I think this card is completely slept on, and we will see a meta where this thing just pops off. So invest and get these. That's my recommendation because this card does pop off, especially if you can Nexus and continuously fuel it with Earth. But in this deck, it's mainly just a 1 cost to disenchant it, then bring back an invoke rune from your underworld to your hand. So we play a decent amount of invoke runes here, a lot more than other ones. We've got 3, 6, 8, 10 invoke runes that we can target with Pandison. So we obviously can target Eruption for an Eruption Pandison, disenchant Eruption for game possibly, or we can like get back an Earthquake, which I mean the card was so strong it was limited to 1. So like I said, watch out for Pandison because as a lot more stuff gets limited, Pandison becomes a way better option because all these toolbox strong limited cards that you can only cast one of, you get to cast multiple of. Next, 2 Viscerus because we can only run 2 now. Viscerus is a 4/2 Gets +1 attack for each Viserys on the field. When Viserys destroys an Celestial in battle, special cast a Viserys from deck or hand. So he's essentially a 5/2 with his own ability. If he's special, if you get to destroy something, it's a 2-for-1 summon. Really good. Also, he'll buff him up with the second one that you summon out. So you essentially get two 6/2s for the cost of one summon, which is extremely strong, obviously. Next, and kind of the main reason why we're playing this deck, it's our big body, our finisher, which doesn't necessarily have to be a finisher. We can kind of stick him just because our defense is pretty big. He's a 5/8, obviously. We can stick him in the middle of the game, and then we can start to use his effect, which says you can expend 1 fire to force an opponent to expend 2. When a player casts Eruption, return 2 Earth from your Underworld to your Spirit deck. So, Eruption, burn them for 2, you'll heal for 2. That's a difference of 5 spirits right there if they don't have a Fire Enchanted Celestial. That and then also the burning for 1 with the effect. It costs you 1, but then it burns them 2, so it's a difference of 5 or 6 spirits if you Vespatuga effect and Eruption in 1 turn. And that's a pretty big swing in spirit, so if you can just ascend over one of your earth guys here, or the 2 fire here, but mainly one of your earth guys because these are going to be your starters. These are going to be your guys that are on the board primarily to start the game, along with your Astro Rabbit. Um, it can be extremely impactful. Then 2 Eddie would run 3, but like I said earlier, I need the third Sorlet due to the fact that the Vespatuga is Earth, and in order to use the ability, I have to be properly enchanted. So the third Eddie went to the Mudlet slot. Does the same thing as Mudlet pretty much, except it only does it when it's cast. Uh, Ash Rabbit, 2/5. Whenever it receives a fire, can target 3 cards in your underworld. Opponent chooses one of them, return it to your hand. So, like I said, there's a lot of toolbox 1-drop or 1 options that the deck that people don't want to bring back. Like if you look at them and you're like, all right, I'm gonna play Ash Rabbit, give me back Eruption, Earthquake, or Laurels. They're like, I'm not happy with that. I don't want to pick any of them. Or you can be like, all right, pick Ambrosia, or Earthquake, and they're like, I really don't want to pick any of those. It says I gave Invoke runes there, but I mean you could go like, all right, let me show Gorgon's Tsunami PTA. Give me back one of those. Just, it's a very strong mid to late game card, but we don't run 3 because we never really want to see this in our opener. If we see this in our opener, it's kind of unfortunate. Most of the time, I probably will mulligan it away if I see it in my opener. I mean, unless the rest of my hand is strong. I'm definitely not going to be leading Ash Rabbit. I will, if I have to lead it, I will just mulligan that hand away. So next is runes. Kind of went over a decent amount of them already with the Pandason, but I'll just talk about them real quick. Ambrosia for healing. Healing just allows you to play the game longer since everything in this deck, or everything in this game costs life to play. Eruption, I mean, we talked about that already, just the cause, or 2 cost burn 3, pairs well with Vespatuga. Boltuga can search it from your deck, or uh, Grave. So if you have Eruption in hand, you can literally go Eruption, play Boltuga, use the effect, put it in from the Underworld back into your hand, play Eruption again. I've done it to where I got a Eruption at the beginning of the game with Boltuga, drew into a second Eruption, and then at the end of the game I drew into a third Boltuga, so I went Eruption, Eruption, Boltuga, Boltuga effect to try to bring back Eruption. They ended up Gorgon's gazing the Boltuga, but it was like 2.5 Eruptions for game pretty much, because they just couldn't get back it from that point. Um, 1 Earthquake because pay 2 to target and destroy anything is extremely strong, and if it's native in our colors, there's no reason to run it. I mean, there's no reason to really not run it to begin with, but especially since it's native in our colors. Resting on your laurels, one cost for a removal spell if they're two ahead of you. Best comeback card in the game and kind of the only comeback card in the game. I'll say it once, say it twice. This is the third time. They should not have limited this card. Earthquake, I kind of understand. Laurels is just a comeback card. It can't be played when you're ahead, so I don't understand the reasoning for doing that. Cryoblast, just a one cost frost. Target an Celestial that's not frost enchanted, give it -2 attack. When it hits 0 attack, it dies. Or, not attack, my bad. Defense. Misspoke there. -2 defense, and when it hits 0 defense, it dies. So just, again, more removal. Due to the fact that a lot of our guys aren't really that big, we have to play as much removal as physically possible. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is kind of the max we're able to do. Sunsea Justice's list I won the last tournament actually ran 7 in the main deck, so we're pretty much right on track with where we should be. 3 Poison Tipped Arrow, because again, removal. The -2 attack can be relevant since we have some decent bodied guys, but not big bodied guys, like our Eddie, our Mudlet, Boltuga. All those can be saved by that, especially if Boltuga's in defense. He's a 4 body, Pandison in defense is a 4 body. So the -2 is nothing to sniff at in this deck. Tsunami is Tsunami. It nullifies an entire battle phase if they're not water enchanted. No reason not to run 3 of them in the main deck. If that you run across the water deck, you just side it out. But I mean, against 7 of the 8 elements, it's fantastic. So there's no reason not to run it. Gorgon's Gaze, 2 cost, say no to everything. Literally just says no to everything. Not much to it. There's no reason not to run it. Shield of Achilles, because we want to stall and we want to keep making them use their resources. So if they can play a guy and then we bounce it back to their hand and they have to replay it again, our goal isn't necessarily to win board state or to establish control of that to win the game by dealing damage. I mean, we deal damage, but not direct damage through combat. We want to get them low enough to the point where we can just burn them out for game. So making them recast their own stuff essentially is them burning. For the spirit deck, got 2 Zaptor, 4 Leviathan, 1 Flurmine. Might increase that to 2, and you'll see why in a second. 6 5 Pyro, and 7 Atlas. I don't really feel like you need more than any of that. All of these numbers are pretty good. Like if you do the math, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13 sources of earth. Divide that by 2, round up at 7. Uh, The only one I'm not comfortable with, I kind of wish we could do a little more fire, but at the same time, we'd have to give up too much of the other stuff, and playing Ambrosia is fine. The likelihood of you getting off all 3 eruptions are pretty low anyways. You're probably going to get off 2, and either Ash Rabbit or Vesfatuga effect, so having 6 Vipyro in the main is fine. Next for our side, we've got 1 Eddie, because like I talked about earlier, I wanted to run it in the main, but I had to run the Swordlet or the Mudlet, so I put it in the side because we are running a package if burn isn't going to work out. If we're playing against a fire deck or if we're playing against like Healstall, we have a package so we can completely switch out all of our burn cards. So we would swap out literally 3, 6, 8, 10, 10 Illustrals, and then we'd go 3, 6, 8, 9, 9 of them in. Swap out the eruptions and figure out one other thing to side out at least, so that way you can side in your Argo package. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm telling you how to side without telling you the whole sideboard. So next on the sideboard is Galaxy. Galaxy is just very strong, probably one of the best illustrals in the game right now. It just the only rune that gets around it is or not Galaxy, gosh, Gorgons. I'm sorry, I am extremely tired. It's about 3 in the morning, but I've got to get these recorded because I have to go to my wife's graduation for her master's degree this week. So I just have to get these done and recorded ahead of time. So pardon me if I can't really talk properly. Next is 3 Nectar. Uh, the reason why is just because they're not ever going to expect a Nectar Wasp Ivy package after running Earth Burn and it's the same exact colors. It's a lot harder to swap into like Earth Nexus because then we need the Equal Links and the Demeters and Elegics and it's just really awkward sometimes to swap into that out of this deck. But swapping into more of a Wasp Ivy deck is a lot easier. So that's why we're doing it. Cyanectar, pretty sure I read it off, but whenever you cast Poison Tipped Arrow, Poison Nectar, or Poison Tunic, you can special ascend the Cyanectar to Wasp Ivy from your hand or deck. So got 2 Wasp Ivy. Wasp Ivy says when it's destroyed in battle, an opponent has to expend 3, so kind of still got that burn effect. Earth Burn right there. Uh, the Wasp Ivy is unaffected by opponent's counter runes if it ascends from Cyanectar, and that ability is nothing to sneeze at considering this entire game is counter runes right now. The only counter rune that actually technically would get around it is Argo, because Argo's not targeting or affecting Wasp Ivy at all. It would just like buff your guy to kill it, which isn't really yeah. It's not really getting around it, but it is a loophole, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah. Next, we've got 2 Argo, like I was pointing at. Argo can be cast only after an Celestial declares an attack, cast an artifact from your hand or deck. So you're going to be casting either the Poison Tunic in order to ascend your Nectar into the Wasp Ivy, uh, and its Poison Tunic says the Empowered Celestial gets -1 attack. When the Empowered Celestial is destroyed in battle, its controller must expend 2. So you can literally just combat trick, kill something, and then ascend into Wasp Ivy can be really strong. Or Necklace of Harmonia, just +5, and then kill, expend 2, or destroy the counter rune. Or destroy the artifact room. Jesus, like I said, I'm really tired. Sorry, I can't speak. And then the final copy of Cryoblast, just in case I feel like we need a little more removal. And that is the entirety of the deck. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the deck. Give me a like, give me a comment, subscribe. It really does help out a lot if you would just take a few moments to like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Uh, so I will see you tomorrow for another deck list. Thank you and have a good day.